Welcome back to ModCons. Today I'm joined, it's a bit echoey, guys, so please accept my apologies. I'm not in a padded environment.
Maybe we should do.
Should be. Anyway, today I'm joined by Oliver Cooper. Shall I call you Oliver? Ollie?
That is my name.
Ollie or Oliver?
Either way, I don't
Either
care.
way, okay, fine. Is it either or either?
Either.
So many questions.
We can clarify that.
You can clarify that. Anyway, Ollie is joining me today to talk about the week. We're going to mock the week.
Yeah,
Even
good.
though that has been trademarked.
It has been, so we're not going to call it mock week. We're
No.
going to call it make fun of the week,
Make
and
fun
then
of the week.
allow them to get their lawyers to write to us.
Satire of the week.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Anyway, so Ollie, how are we?
Doing great, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah?
Just planning my upcoming holiday in Aberdeen South.
Delightful.
What better use of your annual leave could you have than knocking on doors in the Granite City?
Who's our candidate? Do we have one?
Of course we do.
Sorry.
Douglas Lumsden.
Sorry.
She's not prepared. Douglas Lumsden, he's a fantastic member of the Scottish Parliament, was the co-leader of Aberdeen City Council.
Wow.
Representing one of the wards right in the heart of Aberdeen South.
This is amazing.
Fantastic local choice, but also
Local.
because of Aberdeen's really heavy dependence on the oil and gas sector.
Right.
It's hugely important at
And
this
it's
time.
when Kenny was there.
This is the.
I saw the video.
Isn't there? There's a lot of talk about Makerfield. I'm sure we're going to get onto it.
We
There's
are.
a lot of talk about Makerfield by-election really
Yes.
mattering. Aberdeen South really matters as well.
Does it matter more?
It's not going to decide the Prime Minister, so I don't think we can pretend it matters more.
Fine.
But it may very well decide
Yes.
whether the oil and gas sector in the UK has a future.
Whether
And
we
if
drill,
you-
maybe you drill.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If the Conservative Party wins it, think of it like the Uxbridge by-election a few years ago.
Yes, that was
When
great.
that was a really big check on parties just ramming through net zero provisions,
Yeah.
clean air provisions without thinking about the impact on quality of life
Say no to
or
you, Les.
incomes. Absolutely. So it was seen as a bit of a referendum on that, and
Yes.
it stopped in its tracks.
True.
A lot of politicians, sadly not Sadiq Khan, but it stopped in its tracks. A lot of other politicians sort of wading into that sector and making it worse.
Yes.
And this may very well be that moment as well.
Okay.
So it's not going to decide the Prime Minister, but it could well decide the future of the oil and gas
Well, there we
sector.
go.
So it's worth going up and helping.
Well, it seems to be like the topic of the month. It's quite hot right now. Even Tony Blair's talking about it, which we will come to later. But oil and drilling, baby drilling, is like very hot right now.
Yes, I think about energy, and I think I'm quite agnostic between oil and gas and
Yeah.
nuclear and other forms of energy. I don't really care where the energy comes from. This is also
As long as it's cheap.
exactly. So this is Tony Blair's thesis as well. Is you just need to have the abundance philosophy,
Yes.
whereby if you want to, energy is the closest proxy for living standards we've ever had. If you
Yeah.
want to see which societies are thriving,
Mm.
look at the sky at night. Look at which countries have lots of lighting on.
True.
Because that fundamentally is a measure of gross domestic product
That's-
that's far better than you can get really from
That's
balance
deep.
sheets.
I mean, Hong Kong, the lights are always on.
Yeah, exactly. Now they could do with some energy efficiency
Yeah.
measures, but if it costs nothing,
Yeah.
if it costs very little, I do not begrudge people or societies from basing their economic systems around cheap energy.
Yeah, yeah.
We should be doing the same.
We should be doing the same. Even I interviewed Sam Hall, the director of the Conservative Environment Network, and they are very, very eco, they're very green, and they were very pro net zero. But even they are saying like that needs to be the priority now, like cheap energy.
I'm hugely in favour of renewables as well, but what you can't do is have renewables at the expense of
Yeah.
other forms. Government should be relatively agnostic as
Yeah.
between those. There might need to be a pricing mechanism about some externalities, whether that be nuclear decommissioning or CO2. But fundamentally, those are almost rounding errors
Yeah.
in what is actually the social cost of a lot of those energy programs.
The problem is, Ollie, people are going to probably change their mind in 5 years.
Maybe, and that's what the market's there for.
It's
Right?
so annoying. No one can keep up. It's
That's
ridiculous.
And that's why governments need to be consistent in the long term. If you're building,
Yes.
if you're drilling in the North Sea, exploiting a new gas field, if you are building an offshore wind farm, if you're building a nuclear power plant, whatever it happens to be,
Yes.
you are investing for tens of
Yes, it's the
decades.
long term thing. That's why you need cross-party consensus, and I don't think we have that yet.
I think it's going to be very difficult to get, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever happens in the Labour Party psychodrama that's going to play out this year,
Very dramatic.
Ed Miliband is going nowhere. Right, Ed Miliband is
He
one
should.
of the Ed Miliband should get out.
Him and his bacon sandwich should go away forever.
Get in the sea with his
Get in the
offshore wind
sea.
farms. But Ed Miliband's only going to see his star
Do you think he's
shining
going to be his
brighter.
chancellor?
it depends who. We can get onto this
That's
after
so
what happens in Makerfield, but ultimately, I think Ed Miliband is going nowhere.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to name his price, and his price, because he's obsessed with it, is net zero.
Yeah.
So it's very unlikely that we're going to see Labour or this Labour government change its tune on it unless they get a complete shellacking, and hopefully that's what Aberdeen South will do.
Okay, so you think Aberdeen South is that?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So that's not the only other by-election in town.
It's the only one that I'm campaigning in.
I'm going to be going to Makerfield to go and help one of our previous guests, Sir Michael Winstanley. He should be a sir. It just sounds so right.
He hasn't got a knighthood yet.
Not yet.
Someday, a peerage of the realm.
Sounds like he's fantastic. And he gave us a very punchy interview.
I'd expect nothing less than Mike.
It was great. So obviously he is our Conservative candidate standing in the by-election in Makerfield. And quite some other big names are standing. Well, maybe just one.
I don't know. Labour.
He's for you. He's not for him. He's for us.
It's amazing what you can achieve with a really slick video, right? It's just completely rebrand yourself. And the fact he wants everyone, Andy Burnham, just to be clear, that's what we're talking about here. It's not Robert Kenyon. Andy Burnham wants people to forget that he is a career politician. He wants people to forget he's a machine politician.
Indeed.
The fact is, he was first elected to Parliament, I think it was 2001.
It's a long time ago.
25 years ago. He was in his 20s, late 20s at the time, wasn't he? So the idea that he somehow is going to be the antidote to machine politics or to Westminster is a bit bananas, but he has to sit himself with that. I mean, like somewhere like Ashton and Makerfield. There's no such place as Makerfield.
Yeah, I know. Everyone gets very annoyed. It's Wigan, isn't it?
Well, they get annoyed about that. You're right that it is in the Metropolitan Borough of Wigan. But it's like in Arden, right? Henley and Arden or whatever. If you said, "Oh, I'm going to the town of Arden," you'd be made fun of.
Right.
Same in Makerfield. It's just a general.
We went to a by-election once. You got told off, didn't you?
Did that get told off?
I remember that lady on the doorstep. It was the I can't remember which by-election it was. The one with the guy who's Wellingborough and the other. Yeah. There was an extra bit.
I did point out that Rushton had been in the constituency name at some point, or was going back into it, something like that. He was like, "No, you're wrong." And I don't want to pull rank on and be rude to the elector, but I am going to stand my ground on this.
So yes, people do care. You wouldn't think they do, but they do.
They do get, because it is their community. And the fact is they don't live. Politicians are weird, and we've got to accept this. Everyone listening to this is a complete weirdo. True fact. Sorry, guys.
Not true.
If you're watching this for your social life, honestly. But
we've got a very tropical background right here.
But the people in politics that just see the world through a very specific lens. Yeah. And the people who...
Constituencies.
Constituencies, seats, wards, divisions, combined authorities. Nobody cares. They know where they pay their council tax to, and they know which council has their logo on the side of their pins or whatever. So that's really, if you are in Ashton and Makerfield, that's your association with the Metropolitan Borough of Wigan. The idea that Makerfield is the area you live in rather than Ashton is totally bizarre. Right. So I think when you are communicating with electors, it's really important that you remember that their language, because they're the people listening to it, is what you need to do to communicate. I'm leader of the Conservatives on Three Rivers District Council in Southwest Hertfordshire. Three Rivers is a name that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, but
almost every council in the country has three rivers running through its
name. The River Thames?
It is not.
Oh, what are they?
They're the River Colne, which is a tributary of the Thames. It leaves the Thames at Staines and then flows north through Middlesex into Hertfordshire.
So technically still the Thames.
Well, it's in the Thames Valley, I suppose, but then all of the south of England is.
That's true. That's true.
So the Colne runs north off the Thames from Staines up to sort of Hatfieldish area, and then there's the Gade and the Chess. So they're the three. There you go. So
the Makerfield by-election. It's hot. It's not. It was caused by Labour shenanigans.
shenanigans and a half. Yeah,
Josh Simons.
Although he's come out with another barbed remark today.
What?
So Josh Simons. For those of you that haven't been following this, because of course, why would you follow the life and times of Josh Simons?
He seems very sinister, by the way. Just his whole vibe.
And so it's a great scandal for him to have been. He technically wasn't ousted over it, but clearly he could see his path ahead in politics being closed off because of the Labour Together scandal. Exactly. So a combination between sort of push and pull factors, sort of a bit of carrot, a bit of stick.
Yeah.
He was ousted because he, as chair of Labour Together, depending on whether you take his side of the story or reality's side of the story.
Yeah.
He'd orchestrated spying on journalists, including some very unsavoury remarks being made to the organisation at his instruction about the Jewish background of journalists, and comment on their private life and as motivation for different stories they were running. Horrible stuff, and clearly disqualifying from public life.
Yes.
So it was understandable that he saw that there was going to be no real chance he would ever get back into a government position anytime soon. So he decided clearly he wanted to turn himself into a hero somehow. He's a smart guy, right? He is perfectly capable.
It's a shrewd move.
It's a shrewd, and he's perfectly capable of going into the private sector, making a ton of money, and then coming back later on when people remember him as the guy that facilitated Andy Burnham becoming Prime Minister. And I think that's got to be his goal. But
to be like a Morgan McSweeney type guy and just run his office or whatever it is.
Maybe not the best comparison right now, though.
That's not the same ending. It's the beginning, though.
Well, yeah, exactly. Get rid of anything you do to get rid of hard leftists. I am all in favour of. So, like Morgan McSweeney, stage 1, happy days, very happy days. But then everything he's done for the last 3 years, maybe that's
not great. Not great. Okay, so Josh Simons, he got the boot because of the scandal of him investigating journalists. He was like, "Oh crap, my career's over. I'm going to let Andy Burnham in. I'm going to stand down my seat that I don't use cause by-election for, but I'm going to cause by-election, stand on my seat." Andy Burnham then writes to the NEC, "Can I stand?" They can't say no because Starmer's toast, as Kenyon likes to put it. And here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So Burnham has sort of made it a referendum on whether you want change. He's positing himself very sensibly as being the change candidate.
Yes.
I think in politics nowadays, 90% of the battle in election marginal seats is going to be, are you the most change candidate?
Right.
If you aren't the most change candidate, you will be eaten alive. If you're the Labour guy, you're going to be eaten alive from the left by Greens and from the right or from the traditionalist side by Reform. So you need to present to use a fancy word that maybe it requires a thesis that you are going to be the change guy.
You are the change.
So you've got this career politician, Andy Burnham, saying, I'm actually just the mayor. Forget the fact that I was an MP for 16 years before becoming the mayor. Forget the fact that I was a member of the government in the last time Labour were in government. Forget all that. I'm actually Andy Burnham, Mr. Manchester, or actually Mr. 2 miles down the road from Ashton Makerfield. And he wants to present himself as just that local champion.
Yes.
But that will be able to give a boot to Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Now that's an interesting point of view because it means that if you vote for Labour, you're voting basically against the sitting Labour Prime Minister. And
which is the only way he would be able to win that.
Absolutely. And so if you're a Labour voter that for whatever reason actually doesn't think that a psychodrama this summer is worth fighting, do you vote against Andy Burnham to stop that psychodrama? I'm not sure a huge number of people sort of are as into politics as to think at that sort of depth, that maybe you do. What's really interesting is how Reform have to play this.
Yes, exactly.
Because they just fought the local elections in May on the platform of vote Reform, get Starmer out.
Exactly.
Now it's quite explicit. If you vote Reform, you keep Starmer in. And it's less than a month later. And they've had a complete 180-degree turn on really what transactionally happens if you vote for Reform.
Yeah.
And I think that shows a real problem in terms of their positioning as a party generally.
Yes.
Are they the anti-establishment party, change for the sake of change? As I said, it's great to be the change candidate politically right now. But if you are just that, then you have to rail against everything all the time.
Yes.
And people will distrust you. You need to have a level of consistency that is not going to give you the space to develop and to maintain.
They don't have that.
Yeah.
The problem is for them, right, as you say, is they stood on this, get done, vote for reform, get done right. But that's not even their biggest issue now, because obviously you've got Robert Kenyon, who's got a lot of baggage, which you think they would have found out the first time around, because it's not the first time he's stood. And they like to make the excuse, oh, you know, they weren't vetted the last time, but we'll vet them again properly now. Yeah. Here we are, second time round, same candidate, all this stuff's coming out.
I don't know, it just shows, I think, that clearly they wanted to select someone who was local, and look at out locally even Andy Burnham.
Yeah.
So they did go for someone who warts and all, without huge amount of vetting, like ticked that box very strongly.
Right.
And, you know, I don't think that he's a particularly fit person to be a member of parliament, but there is no doubting that he is local.
Right, but that's all that matters anyway.
A local plumber, like they did, is our Hannah Spencer.
Yeah, but Hannah Spencer was actually a politician, even though she was a local plumber. She had been like campaigning for the Green Party for like many years.
Yeah. And I think, so, without wanting to relitigate the last by-election,
she's not a great addition. She's very annoying. Like, she doesn't want anyone in the bars. It's just like, oh,
and she just looks like a bit of a children's entertainer, to be honest. Like, she dresses, she does dress like a fan. Anyway, that's not the point. But the Robert Kenyon is trying to play that sort of same card.
Yes.
I'm a man of the people. I'm local, and because he ticks those boxes, they said, you know what, we're gonna not even look at other things.
Yeah, anything else.
Forgetting that you know, you need to make sure, and particularly in a parliamentary by-election, when there's going to be all this scrutiny. That you need to be ready for prime time.
Totally.
And if you're not, I'm sorry, you need to go with someone else.
Yeah.
But they were burned when they went with Matt Goodwin in the last
by-election. He was terrible as a candidate choice.
It's just
it makes sense.
I like some of the stuff, a lot of the stuff that Matt has said. But at the end of the day, he is an academic from Hertfordshire. Not Hertfordshire.
He used ChatGPT to write his book. Like, how clever are you? It doesn't quite add up. You say you're an academic and you know you're a big detail guy, but then you can't even be asked to finish your book yourself.
Well, it turns out that Rob Kenyon has written a book. I'm not sure if you've seen this story. I think it was an exclusive.
Well, women are so crap.
It's salacious, bodice ripping.
Wow,
okay. The terminology I think so. So I've not read the book myself. I have read the Mirror. The Mirror have done an exclusive today about a book that he'd written in 2017 that is lusty.
It's ridiculous.
What we should have done in preparation for today is got a copy of that and done a dramatic reading.
That's hilarious. Okay, well, that's mental. Obviously, Robert Kenyon's their candidate. It doesn't feel like they genuinely care whether their candidate's a dodgy or not. That's just my feel so far.
No, I think they want to win, right? They want to win, and they don't really care what the consequences are afterwards.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a short-sighted view. One, this by-election is not their golden ticket.
Yeah.
Right? It might decide whether Andy Burnham's Prime Minister, but it won't decide whether Nigel Farage is Prime Minister.
Yes, that's true.
So they are betting an awful lot on this, given the prize that's available to them.
But it does prove to that, like, they should really fight it with all they've got, which they said they were going to do, which doesn't really feel like they're doing. Because if Andy Burnham can defeat them in this, then the argument can be made that he can defeat them in a general election, and then they're not as strong as they say they are.
Well, this is one of the most like pro-reform seats in the country. If you look at both the election results, where they won every single ward that was contested in the seat in May, but also just based on the demographic, socioeconomics of the area, how it voted in the referendum in 2016, like it's a very pro-reform seat by any measure. So if they can't win in Makerfield, you're talking about it being maybe only 40 or 50 seats being more friendly to reform than the Makerfield is. I get that they're against Burnham, and Burnham's got a big personal vote versus Labour. But where this is a bit of a free hit for reform, which by-elections are, if they can't win in Makerfield, it's a bit of a problem for them. It
is. In terms of the candidate, just lastly on that, is everyone's so, this is like a big question in politics. It's like, is it more important that you have like an A-class candidate, or is it important that you have a local candidate? And we still having this debate constantly that local is the most important thing. And then people complain when their ministers aren't good. They complain then when they can't find a leader who isn't from 20 years ago, who's competent. They've got 400 MPs, they can't find one of them that they'd want to lead them. They wonder then why that happens when they keep picking like people based on their locality rather than whether they're actually good for the job.
Yeah, and so I think in general elections, you absolutely have to make sure you've got a team there where you are proposing that this will be our cabinet. This is the sort of alternative government we put together. You need to make sure you've got the talent there.
Yeah.
When it's a by-election, it's not talking about who the prime minister is. It's the individual who will be far more prominent in people's minds.
Yeah.
I think that trade-off between local and having someone who can be a front bencher, I think tilts the other way.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I think politics has gone far too far in the direction of saying we want someone who's going to be local. You as a member of parliament, even if you are elected in the by-election, are not there fixing potholes. No. I'm sorry, you're not electing Rob Kenyon to go fix your sink either, right? You are electing someone who's legislating. Well, but him and Hannah Spencer can form a plumbing company together all they want.
They clean up.
But if you are a legislator, your number one job is to legislate.
Indeed.
So you need, with all due respect to people that aren't lawyers, you need a bunch of lawyers there.
Not all lawyers, because it gets a bit boring.
It does get a bit boring. I'm a lawyer myself.
Yeah,
rude. But you are scrutinising the finances and management of government departments in select committees.
Yeah.
So you need to have people who have backgrounds in business and accounting and finance and management. You are looking at a whole bunch of other fields which need to have expertise coming into it. So if you only have people that can say, well, I'm the best candidate because I've always lived in this area, great, but what's your CV? What's going to make my life better?
Yes.
You may very well know about these issues, but some of the greatest constituency MPs that I've ever encountered in my life had no connection to the constituency at all until just before they were elected. They came in, and because of their attitude, they embedded themselves from not even waiting until they were elected, but embedded themselves beforehand and were able to then bring superlative skill sets to deliver to that area. In by-elections, that trade-off's different, and I'm afraid you'll get a lesser quality of MP as a result, especially in this one.
Yes, especially in this one. Well, the country must decide, what do they want, the local or the best? No offense. Anyway, so moving on. So the reason that we have this by-election the reason why this by-election is also important is because it's why Wes Streeting is waiting to launch his leadership. And this is the reason. It's not because he doesn't have the numbers, everyone. He has the numbers. He says he has them. Although when he did his resignation speech, there were about 20 people around him. So I don't see 80.
It's not 81,
Not 80, but hey. But so Wes Streeting, he's waiting for Andy Burnham to do this, get in, and then it can be a real battle. What do you think about this?
I think Wes Streeting I think he's got to realise in his sort of private moments with himself, he's got to recognise the fact that he's only really an option given the Labour Party membership if everybody else messes up.
Yeah.
If everybody
including Keir Starmer?
Well, I think Keir Starmer might end up falling on his sword himself because inevitably the failures stack up. But if you look at the polling, hypothetical polling between him and any other prospective contender, anyone to the left of Wes Streeting, which is every single other contender, beats Wes Streeting very comfortably. Yeah. I think there was one poll. Polling party members is very difficult, but some people have now got it down to a bit of a science. Yeah. It showed that he would lose 4-1, like 80% to 20% against Andy Burnham. So that makes you an also ran. Yeah, that's a humiliation. So that's barely more than think that we didn't land on the moon. So the idea that he has a chance of winning if there's a serious alternative contender is, I think, a bit delusional.
Very.
But I think he needs to know that if he doesn't strike at some point, you can't wait for
it's weird.
Perfect time. There'll always be someone to the left of him in the field. He's a young guy. He's 43, something like that. So if he wanted to wait 5 years,
he should have waited. I think
maybe. So I think with him, particularly with where he positions himself, which is he hates the term Blairite, but he very clearly is a Blairite. Yeah. In the last 24 hours, he's come out and slammed Tony Blair performatively because he has to hate that term. But he's a Blairite. Yeah. The only way that he is able to become a Labour Party leader is if the Labour Party membership want someone who will sacrifice their principles to win.
Yeah. And they've already did that.
And they've done that. They've done that a few times in their history. And then when they've remembered their principles with Jeremy Corbyn, they lost even harder.
Yeah.
And rightly so, given how horrible those principles are.
Yes.
But that's a difficulty for it, isn't it? Like, you have to wait until you're in opposition, wait until the party is desperate,
yes,
and only then can you strike. When the party might be on its way to extinction, if it's been overtaken by the Greens by that point, it will become basically an also-ran, as we've seen in lots of other European countries with the mainstream centre-left.
Yeah.
So I don't blame Streeting for saying, you know what, I'm going to go into the race now, and hypothetically, if the ball comes loose from the scrum because everyone else knocks each other out, I might be able to pick it up.
He's definitely not. My thoughts on Streeting. Firstly, he's like a bad version of Keir Starmer. Like, he's just like a less popular version of Keir Starmer. Why do we want that? We don't. I don't really want that. Secondly, I don't feel like he's actually finished the job. He kind of just like left. We've now got new strikes from the junior doctors. We don't feel like he's completely finished the job. He didn't do anything on social care. He's now done nothing on prostate cancer. Like, what have you actually done? Okay, you've got waiting lists down. Some people think you just deleted half of the data. So it just doesn't feel like a strong enough, I don't know, place to launch a leadership campaign from. It just feels a bit weird.
I'm not sure the Labour Party membership care about those results. They're not focused on those outcomes. Right. I do have to disagree with you. I don't think he's anything like Keir Starmer. So I think Wes Streeting has a very keen political instinct.
Yes.
I don't think he really knows why he's got a great background story, his upbringing, all this stuff that he uses as why he's in Labour.
Yeah.
But I don't really know why, policy-wise, he's really in the Labour Party, and therefore why he's having to do this performative shredding of everything he actually believes in.
Yeah.
He clearly doesn't believe in a wealth tax, and he's gone big on that.
Yeah, that's so bizarre. It's not even from the right wing of his party. I don't get it.
It's clear it clearly wouldn't work. No. And if he believes in anything, it's doing what. If he needs to believe in anything to have a niche, it's to do what works. That sort of Blairite position.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer, by contrast, I think he is instinctively a very left-wing person. I happen to
he definitely is.
Encountered him a load of times because I was leader of the Conservatives in Camden, where he is a member of Parliament. Yes. So I've seen him up close and personal, and I know that he's instinctively a left-wing person, but without much of a feel for how politics works or how policies intersect with like ordinary people's psyche.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that just because saying he's out of touch.
No.
I'm saying like the art of politics is brand new to him. He only got into it in 2015, and the last 11 years he hasn't even really cared about it for most of that time.
Yeah.
So when something came along like the winter fuel payments issue, he didn't even think about it through the impact on how people in the country at large would perceive it.
Yeah.
Because it's so foreign a thought process.
Yeah, but if you're a super left-wing person, which he definitely is, like in his uni days, he wrote like The Acceptable Face of Socialism was his like paper. If you are a left-wing person instinctively, then instinctively you know that it's bizarre to rip away someone's pension or winter fuel allowance like 2 minutes before they're about to get it.
Yeah, but I think fundamentally it's like one of those things where
he's not very smart.
A load of policies are always presented to chancellors by civil servants. Every single year, winter fuel payment was presented to every chancellor going back to George Osborne and probably before that, saying you need to get rid of this, you need to cut it back. And every single time, the chancellor of all different political stripes, until it was Labour's turn, said, "Oh, we said, don't be silly."
She said,
"Of course, we can't do that." Yes, we get the civil servants give us advice, but civil servants sometimes give bum advice.
Yeah.
And advisors advise and ministers decide.
Yes.
And Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer saw that advice and said, "Yep, sounds good.
Sounds great. Let's do it."
Because there's no instinctive feel. Whereas I think where Streeting's problem is the opposite, which is that he doesn't really have a very core narrative as to what he wants to sell or do differently, other than do things better.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that in a world of distrust in politicians, you find it very hard to build that.
Well, this is what the old boy, Tony Blair, said, right? So I think all three of them, so Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham, are basically guided by their own ambition because they want the job, right? They don't necessarily want to change anything. Andy Burnham has suddenly come up with this Burnhamism, Manchesterism, mixed with interventionalism and what else? Buses. I mean, it's very bizarre. Like, no one really knows what he's saying, but he's just decided that's his stance on life. And obviously, Tony Blair came out this week with a scathing 5,000-word essay. I don't really think it's an essay, but it's a very long article where it feels like he was up in the middle of the night and he was just like, you know, I've got stuff to say. Just like furiously typing. He'd had one too many Chardonnays, and he was like, I've got to get this off my chest. And so he wrote this essay on why Labour basically is doomed, and all of us are doomed, and now everyone thinks he's a Tory. In short.
Yeah, so I'm a bit more cynical than that. Like you can see in everything he said and all his media appearances and clips around it as well have been pitching AI as absolutely core to everything, and the reason he's got a lot of AI clients.
Yeah.
And I do understand that you got to pay, even if you are Tony Blair, you got to pay the bills.
Fine. So you think it's a more sinister, which wouldn't put
it's not illegitimate. AI is the biggest. It is the biggest economic trend right now. It is bigger than the crisis we face around NEETs or related to it. It is bigger than the crisis around fuel energy bills, although it is related to it. Yeah. So if you can look at all those crises and link them back to AI, not only do you for your clients, but also I think there is a fundamental truth about where we need to be 10 years from now versus today. There's all sorts of reasons, nefarious and less so, as to why it came out. But you know, he needs to time his interventions very carefully.
Yes.
He isn't firing off a missive every single week.
It does feel quite often though. Like he's always on a stage with his legs crossed, talking about something. I feel like I hear from him far too much, like more than I hear from Boris, and he has a weekly column.
Yeah, I don't think we hear it anywhere near as much as we do from Boris, and I welcome Boris more into the public domain.
Yeah.
But Tony Blair knows that he is reviled in his own party.
Yes.
Which means he doesn't have a vanguard that will say, yes, I'm a Blairite.
Yeah.
As I said, people are running away from that label.
Yes.
People are not saying I'm a Blairite the same way people said they were a Thatcherite.
Yes.
So as a result, who is going to defend his legacy?
Yes.
Almost nobody but himself. So he does need to wade in strategically to actually make people feel a bit wistful when it makes sense and where that would be the consequence. He needs to wade in and say, guys, can we just be the adults in the room?
Yes.
Because I think Labour don't know what they're doing. They said it's going to be really easy to govern. Governing is easy if you just put a really smart guy in the room with the buttons and the advice. It's like Starmerism.
Yeah.
He'll make good decisions.
Yeah.
The problem is that Starmer is a left-winger who's been presented advice by civil servants that actually says you can't do the stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
He then dithers and delays and does nothing and U-turns and so on.
Yeah.
And the consequence is governing is made to look very, very hard.
Yeah.
But it does look and governing is hard. It's not impossible.
It's not as hard as they make it
seem. This government has made it look impossible to govern Britain. Yeah, people are saying, is Britain ungovernable? No, of course it's not. You just need people who are capable of governing.
That's all.
There was this one is the issue around MPs all being on the local champion rather than a skill set.
Yes.
But the second is there was an analysis done maybe last month about the professional backgrounds of members of parliament.
Yeah.
And more than half of them
had
the majority of their professional experience was either in politics or in charities of the third sector. So either already as part of the problem, or your job is lobbying to be part of the problem.
Yeah, 100%.
So very few people are going into government with, and I'm not saying that, because Tony Blair clearly wanted to be prime minister from a very, very, very young age. So I'm not saying that he's the model.
No.
But you had people with competence and excellence. Gordon Brown was at university at the age of 15. You have competence and excellence going into those roles, whether you agree with them or not.
Yes, exactly.
And now you just have such B-team people.
It's a circus. Well, I think that's a really, really good point. But like you look at, I don't think it's ambition that's a problem, because you look at David Cameron and whether like some Conservatives really don't like his legacy, some do, but the way that he prepared for government, he knew he wanted to be prime minister, but he prepared like so extensively with George Osborne to actually implement something very much what they wanted to do. Like they had a plan, they executed it, and then they excelled at it until they didn't. But yeah, like you say, ambition isn't necessarily the problem. It's sometimes just the person.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Cameron Osborne couldn't execute it because of the coalition, sadly. So they spent years preparing for what they would do if they had all the levers and all the,
But they
rather
did
than
come up
couldn't
with a
do.
deficit and all of that kind of
And this is the thing I think very clearly Osborne said is just non-negotiable.
Yeah,
Here is our
exactly.
moral mission:
Yes.
is put the country back on an even keel. But a whole bunch of stuff they'd spent years preparing for
Right.
couldn't be done just because a few seats went the wrong way.
Fine.
And I think you've got to, and it takes people of true excellence.
Yeah.
And again, whether you agree with them ideologically
Yes,
or not,
exactly.
true excellence to go, here's a plan, here's how we're going to execute it. And then when it can't come to fruition, because no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Or to quote Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until someone starts punching them in the face.
You get punched in the face, yeah. Right.
It takes
four events, dear boy.
Right, exactly.
So
mixing
many.
loads of quotes here. Someone got a predation dictionary for Christmas. But no, so
Yes.
it takes true excellence to be able to govern this country, and we don't have that in the government right now.
No, we don't. So obviously Tony said that. So I'm going to read you a bit of what he said. So he said, it was kind of like shots fired, but I appreciate what you said about him trying to defend his legacy. And it does feel like that's what he's just desperate to do because it ended so terribly for him. It seems like his now, the rest of his life's mission, apart from making his money, is to actually try and like rewrite history to some respect. Although I guess at the beginning he was very successful. And he does say that. So he says, it's quite a savage opener. He goes, I led the Labour Party for 13 years and through 3 general elections, even though he doesn't mention not 3 terms, but hey, it's a party largely of decent, well-meaning people. It feels like you just said he's trying to defend himself, trying to defend his legacy, and he's also like firing shots basically at the loony left as he may see them. He then goes on to say, like many progressive parties, it has an almost infinite capacity for self-delusion. Savage.
True.
It won the 2024 election not by acclaim, but by being an acceptable, credit to Keir Starmer, default option. Ouch. He says obviously they don't have a coherent plan. He says it feels like Andy Burnham hit a nerve because then he says the alternative, which thinks the answer is moving even further left on taxes, spending and welfare, spun with a rehash of the far left critique about nothing good coming out of the last 40 years of neoliberalism, which presumably includes the last Labour government. So obviously he's saying, Andy, you were there.
Yeah.
Don't forget,
yeah.
boy. And then he says, we need leaders who are problem solvers, not problem managers. Too often sensible people aren't radical and radical people aren't sensible. He had lots of interesting things. That the main thing he was advocating for was radical centralism, he said. And he's basically saying that, as people have been saying for a long time, that we have this big gap in the centre of UK politics and no one wants to touch it with a barge pole, and he doesn't quite understand why.
Yeah, I don't think it's that nobody wants to touch it. It's about the Labour Party is institutionally incapable of touching it.
Right? Although he said for 13 years they weren't.
I think he said for 13 years we were full of decent people, and I think they, because of the 18 years in opposition they had before, of which 15 were before Tony Blair became party leader. 15 years of defeat was enough to drive Labour into saying, fine, we tried Foot, then we tried Kinnock twice, then we tried John Smith, very decent man, although sadly passed away. So then we have to try Tony Blair and just try something different. And that's the moment that they might turn to Wes Streeting or that sort of problem solving rather than problem managing. But right now they're completely incapable of doing that. That capacity for self-delusion is way off the charts. I think what's more interesting than what Tony Blair said, because we've known what Tony Blair thinks and how he'd want to govern. The only things that really have changed in this essay are on energy. It was brand new. And previously, he's sort of, and Tony Blair, related think tanks, sort of Blairy think tanks, have promoted rejoining the EU or get closer into the EU as like the panacea that's going to solve everyone's problems. Even though that would just guarantee that reform win the next election. So not keen on that for lots of reasons.
Votes, people. Can we just accept that we had a vote? It's been decided. We weren't lied to. Just move on.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry.
I agree, Jim. You need to apologise. So he's changed his tune on a few things. What's really interesting is the response in a series of essays. I think every Labour Party figure understood their political assignment, which is rush out a counter essay that slams Tony Blair as hard as possible, as fast as possible.
Yeah.
She had Keir Starmer saying, "I respect Tony Blair, but piss off."
On Substack, very edgy.
Very on Substack, exactly. It's like announcing the cost of living package on TikTok. It's like, great work, Rach. So he did his response. Wes Streeting was the first one out of blocks with his response, but I guess
I haven't seen his.
He's got no other responsibilities in life.
He's got a lot
other than knifey, so he's got loads of time to write that. And Andy Burnham's, I think, is most interesting. And that's because it lent so hard into that really pernicious trend of just local.
Yes.
Now, he's got to win this by-election. I get that. He's got to pretend he didn't serve in the Blair Brown government.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes.
But all of his essay could have been written as if he had never been an MP.
Yes.
It wasn't a pitch to be Prime Minister, and it wasn't even a pitch to be MP. It was a pitch to be the Mayor of Greater Manchester. The role he already has.
Yes.
Right? It was, it was all about buses.
He loves buses.
The thing is, actually, what's interesting, so on buses, their ridership has actually fallen.
I wasn't like that.
Their ridership has fallen since he became Mayor of Greater Manchester. Now, obviously, there has been the COVID, so as a consequence, it's fallen in lots of places. But it's fallen more in Greater Manchester than it has in any other northern major conurbation.
No way.
Despite the fact they're now spending more on subsidising and maintaining it. So the idea that Andy Burnham's great success in these yellow bee buses is absolutely bananas. And yet that's the thing he wants to hold up.
He loves that.
As the riposte to Tony Blair, who won 3 general elections, who messed up lots, but was the Prime Minister for 10 years. Yes. His riposte is, I've done the buses.
£2.
Not so well though, mate. Not
so digs at the Labour government who put up the Conservative Party's £2 bus cap to £3, and he's like, well, it's still £2 where I am. So just kind of dig the Labour government.
What I think he's saying though is you should vote for Michael Winstanley as a Conservative candidate to get back £2 bus fares.
Indeed. I agree. So Burnham clapped back. He said all of that, and then he ended by saying, I'm glad that Tony has opened this much needed policy debate, blah, 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 blah. My problem is, why are they doing this now? Why didn't they do it in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024 even? Why wait until you're supposed to be governing the country to be like, let's take a really hard look at ourselves and see what we want to do in government? Hello?
Yeah,
you're there.
So clearly the Morgan McSweeney strategy was say as little as possible for as long as possible, let people project their frustrations with the world and with the country and say Labour are the solutions to that.
Yes.
And make Labour just the change candidate. And by the skin of their teeth, they managed to get a majority, like the most shallow majority ever.
Yes.
But still large enough to ram through any changes they want, except with the big rebellions that they've had. But bizarrely had these great rebellions so soon. But that's almost an inevitable consequence of not having united the party around anything.
Yes.
It was elect me as Keir Starmer because I will win again. And then you'll see how good I am when we win.
Yeah.
And it's like with riding a bike. Like if you stop moving forward, it's going to fall over.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. No one knows what the narrative is. No one knows what they're there for. Lots of members of parliament can see that they're going to be out in 2-3 years' time anyway. So they're going to go like, what is my legacy going to be? How can I look my kids and my grandkids in the eye?
How can I get a job after this?
What can I put my CV other than failed politician?
Yeah.
And a lot of them are now saying, well, I want to get a headline because of this. I want to have a legacy project because of that. And that's incredibly unhealthy for a majority, even as large as the one they've got.
No, it's true. And he did mention that Tony Blair was like, what are we here for kind of thing. But on the, what's I going to ask you? On the essay, he talks about, like you mentioned, AI being the biggest thing. I feel like it's actually like global security more than anything else. Surely like cyber, wars, energy security, food security, that's the big issue. I don't think AI, I get that AI is huge and it has an impact on all of those things, but I think it's actually the reverse rather than
Well, let's use
AI first.
maybe, but let's use some of those examples. Let's look at war.
Yes.
There's no doubt in my mind that Ukraine probably has the world's third most powerful military right now,
right,
after the US and China, and they're turning the war and probably going to win the war in quite conventional terms. And the reason they've done that, well, certainly on trends right now,
right,
because they are using autonomous drone swarms, and AI technology and homegrown technology made in Ukraine, to absolutely dominate the battlefield.
Right.
They have individual drone operators being able to operate drones of dozens or hundreds of drones, taking out dozens or hundreds of targets.
Right.
That's something that we are not prepared for.
No.
We have in a defense investment program that should have been defense investment plan that should have been published almost a year ago, that the government has held up because we are simply unable as a Whitehall mechanism to be able to rethink how we fight those wars. War is being reinvented by AI. The risk of youth unemployment is reinvented by AI. The energy demands are being driven by AI. Name some of the other global trends you're talking about. I think that AI stands at the reason why those things have changed and that we're playing catch up. Or it is, like in energy, the driver in the first place.
Yes, but I think people also slightly mistake tech in general for AI, and they just say, oh, it's AI. AI is driving all of this. Yeah, there are technological advances, but it's not necessarily all AI based. Which would be my response, I guess. But yes, anyway, so that's now, before we move on to our second to last thing, do we think that Labour are going to win this by-election?
They're the favourites.
Yeah.
Right, I am a betting man.
Yes.
And I can see that the bookies...
I hope you haven't made any bets. We don't want to get ourselves into...
I've not placed any bets on this one. The bookies do say there's an implied odds of about 80% chance, 75-80% chance that Andy Burnham wins. About 20-25% chance that Reform will win it.
Yes.
I think the Reform have chosen a totally bizarre strategy in this by-election, not just in the choice of their candidate, not just in the failure to vet him, but also their absolute obsession with Restore.
Yes, we need to bring up Restore.
Their obsession with Rupert Lowe, as if the by-election is being fought against Rupert Lowe.
I know.
When the correct strategy and response to a party that's still polling only 3% in national polls, higher in Makerfield, I get that, but it's only polling 3% in national polls. The way that you respond to it is you ignore them.
Yes.
Right? Why on earth would you give greater salience and show that you disagree with this guy who used to be your right-hand man?
He was a great MP for them.
So the idea that picking a fight with Rupert Lowe and with Restore is the way to get people to not support Restore in the very short term is totally mad. And the right response is the one that Kelly Badenoch has taken, and the Conservative, which is you play to your strengths.
Yes.
Right. So clearly the Conservative Party, as those odds imply, are very unlikely to win the Makerfield.
Yeah, and it never would have.
But ultimately, if it's about whether Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister or Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister, we almost have no dog in the fight as Conservatives. Where we do have a dog in the fight is in that Aberdeen South by-election.
Yes.
And so as a
consequence, being paid for this.
Exactly. So if anyone wants to fly to Aberdeen South and campaign there for the Conservatives, Douglas Lumsden. But that is the right approach. Whereas Nigel Farage, because he needs to look like he's the most changed candidate, coming back to that change theory of politics, because he needs to look like the most changed candidate, he needs to take down Restore. Strategically, he needs to take down Restore. But the consequence of that is he's going to lose his by-election.
He's not going to take down Restore because Restore are a more authentic version of what he thinks and what he's pretended to be for the last 2 years. Just full stop. The thing about Restore, the thing about this by-election is every time Reform say they're going to throw everything out of by-election and they're the ones that are going to win it and they're the best and they're great, they lose. So I feel like, I don't know if, the media is saying enough about the fact that they never win what they say they're going to win. Very rarely. I think they won once by 6 votes. That was Sarah Pritchard's. That's the only time. There was another one they said they were going to win, they lost. There was another one they said they were going to win, they lost. They said they're not actual winners. Okay, locally in council elections, they're doing really well. Great. But in terms of getting parliamentary seats, the most seats they've got are by defections, not because they've gone to the public and actually had the vote. And when they do go to the public and have the vote, they lose.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Well, I think it's an interesting double-edged sword, and Reform trying to, use the same arguments that they've decried anybody else using in the last few years is interesting. So Richard Tice, when he was Reform leader in 2023, said, we are going to stand candidates in every Conservative seat. The Conservatives are the problem. Even if it hands a seat to Labour, then we don't care because you need to use fealty tests, you need to stand by your principles.
Yes.
And what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. And if you believe in that sort of, I don't believe in that kind of politics.
Right.
I believe that you should have broad churches as political parties, and you should thrash out, like Margaret Thatcher did, internally, what the right position is for the centre right.
Yes.
And on different policy issues.
Yes.
And sometimes it's going to be one faction that wins, and sometimes it's going to be another faction that wins. But you should have a broad church rather than playing out this psychodrama in public.
Yes.
Between different political parties that attack each other.
Yeah.
So I have a different philosophical approach to Reform, but Reform have said for several years, our job is not to do that. Yes. Our job is to have competition externally between parties.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening. Yeah. And so they're just being hoisted by their own betrayal.
Exactly. They don't like it when it's done to them, which is the trend with Reform. And I want to talk about jobs and young people. We don't have much time, but obviously there are over a million young people out of work. Labour are trying to pretend it's got nothing to do with them. Thoughts?
Employing young people, particularly people that have never had a job or very rarely had jobs, is very expensive.
Yes.
And I don't mean expensive in terms of their wage, though those have gone up as well, but very expensive in terms of the risk that you are taking as an employer.
Yes.
Which is why there are so many employment initiatives that a well-run government will introduce to make sure that you sort of mitigate that risk that employers take on. Yeah. If you have a system whereby you're taking on all that risk and you have full employment rights from day one, and you have higher wages and if all of that happens, I'm sorry, young people are not going to be taken on. Yeah. You're going to have employers bending over backwards to extend people's working ages until later on in life. You're going to get them going to automate things. You're going to have them outsourcing to overseas. They'll use any mechanism they can to get work done by somebody that's not the 18-year-old trying to get their foot on, but actually, 21-year-old, 23-year-old trying to get their foot on the employment ladder. We need to cut that Gordian knot, and you can only do that by saying, you know what, young people need to be de-risked. Yes, totally that. And I think the thing about Labour is they love to gaslight people. Every single employer is telling you it's the cost of energy, it's your employment rights bill, it's the fact that you put up NICs, it's the fact that you put up business rates, it's the fact that you put up national minimum wage, all at the same time. We're all telling you this, and they're like, oh yeah, some people have mentioned it, but it's really because of the Tories, or it's really because of we're not educating them enough at school. It's like, no, people are telling you what the reason is. Of course, there are other factors, but people are telling you the reason now that they're not hiring, and they're still saying no. Instead, their solution is to accelerate their youth guarantee scheme, which is going to give 30,000 young people training placements when there are, and it's only young people who are on universal credit and have been for more than 6 months. There are still, over 1 million young people out of work, employment. So I don't know how 30,000 quite equates to 1 million. It doesn't rise to the occasion. It doesn't recognise the scale of the challenge. Touch the sides. It's bizarre. Anyway, so that's almost it. My other thought this morning was what's wrong with Torsten Bell, but that's just a whole other. Not just this morning, that's been several years coming. What's wrong with that guy? He's absolutely bizarre. Lastly, we are both Arsenal supporters. Absolutely. It's been a good time to be alive. It's been a great time to be alive. And yeah, happy days. Anyway. Yeah. So we're recording this on Friday. I think it goes out on Monday after the Champions League final. Yeah. So I don't think we should be hold ourselves to hostage by predicting what the outcome will be. But what a fantastic win for Arsenal in Champions League final. It's 4-1. What a great result as well. Yeah. And the 74th minute, Gyökeres's goal. Amazing. Yeah. We'll see if that prediction comes true. Love it. Well, hopefully they win. I will not watch because whenever I watch, they lose. So I won't be watching, but I will be supporting them. Are you sure you're a fan? Happens every time, okay. So I won't do it. I won't jinx us. I'll see you at the parade. I'll see you after. Yeah. But Ollie, thank you so much for joining me today on ModCons. Thank you.